Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the 2019 golf season. It's supposed to be here, isn't it? Although Mother Nature's not really cooperating. Welcome again. My name is Todd McGrath. I'm the head golf professional here. I think I've met everyone in the room, but I want to make sure we do the proper introductions. Thanks for joining us this evening. We have a couple little events we're going to do. I'm sure you're very aware. First of all, we're going to run through some of the new rules changes to the 2019 rules of golf. And then we have Superintendent Greg here as well to do a few things later on for some care of the golf course, etiquette, and just proper use of the property. Sound good? We're hoping to keep you here for a maximum 2 hours. Is that okay? Sound good? Max. We're going to cut into Greg's time a little bit, I think, just based on a couple of these presentations that have been done already at various clubs around the city. We thought we could do it in an hour. It's probably going to be an hour and 15, maybe an hour and a half. But we want to be interactive with some questions as well. So I'll be walking around with the microphone. If anybody would like to ask a question in particular, feel free to do so during the presentation. We do have a slideshow program from Golf Canada we're going to be able to keep here at the club that we'll be able to share with the members and pass it through email or through our news and notes. And we're also recording this evening, thanks to Eugene, so we will put that up on our YouTube channel, or again, if a member would like to review some of the slideshow over the presentation tonight. So, any particular questions before we get going? Perfect.
I wanted to make up a rule.
Make up a rule?
Only us will know, and we
That's a
can
good
tell
one.
people out there that you didn't
And
come to
just-
the class, so.
Just balderdash, just flow.
Make up a rule.
Okay, we'll think about that. You'd be the one to come up with that, wouldn't you, Mary? Okay, we do have some rules books here as well too, so the new version of 2019, and we will distribute afterwards if someone would like to purchase them. They're $4 through Golf Canada, and we brought them in, and we can simply just hand them out and write your name down and put them on your account later on. It's very convenient for you. I think based on timing and the length of presentation, and everyone's so excited to get going on the rules of golf, I went through a very similar presentation with the PGA about 2 days ago, and it was 6 hours, so you're lucky for me. Okay? So I'd like to introduce Tom Forrestal. Tom is a rules official with Golf Canada. He's done a couple of presentations like this as well, and he's been through it, and he's very knowledgeable on the rules of golf, and I'm sure he'll allude to it as well too. But if you have something as we go through, like to ask a question, feel free to put your hand up. I may just approach you with a microphone if you don't mind, so we can hear it clearly amongst the crowd, and then we'll keep going through everything that's on Tom's agenda. Sound good?
Good.
Great. Would you like the microphone, Tom? Are you gonna...
Okay, if you can hear me without the microphone, can everybody hear me? Or
Yep.
okay. Okay. So thanks very much for coming. The Golf Ontario is pleased to provide this as one of the member services that you get for being a member. So tonight. Oh, there we go. So we're going to take a look through what we call the notable changes. We'll also hit on some of the existing rules, but how those rules have changed. Some of them are the same. We'll take a look at pace of play support as well, because that's now in the rules. That encouragement for a little faster play. And we'll look at the various areas of the course, the kind of things that you normally do out there, and how it will affect it, such as dropping and taking relief certain situations. So we'll take a look at those, and then just a couple of local rules that you might have in play here, and we'll just see the effect of those. So the principles behind golf have not changed, and these principles have been there ever since the beginning. Play the course as you find it. Play the ball as it lies, spirit of the game, and one of the few sports, or only sport, where you have to apply your own penalties. So it relies on the integrity of the players in playing to apply those rules. And what we'll go through, I mean, some courses, in some situations, you can't play the ball as it lies, and so you're able to take relief. Sometimes it's free relief, and sometimes it's penalty relief. So we'll take a look at that. There's some new terminology. Those who are familiar with the rules, new terminology, so that'll be a change. For those who haven't been that familiar with the rules, these will be just new words. You won't have to worry about the old ones. So Things like through the green don't exist in there anymore. We've renamed all the areas of the course, or some of the areas of the course, so that they're all sort of consistent. Hazards, the word hazard is gone. We now just have red penalty areas or yellow penalty areas. And we'll take a look at those and what your options are in those situations. Outside agency, I'm not sure if anybody really understood what that was in the past, but it's outside influence. So it's influences on the ball and how you deal with those particular influences. Abnormal ground conditions, well, we've added something in there, removal instructions to that as well, and we'll see when we go along that because the relief is all the same, we've just grouped things together so that because the relief is the same, there's no sense having a couple of different rules for the exact same situation. And things like no play zones, there's environmentally sensitive areas, what do you do with those? In most cases, it's just a no play zone, and we'll talk about what you might have out here as a no play zone. So it's just to be clear. And one of the, probably a significant item is nearest point of relief was, nobody really realized that it was the nearest point of complete relief. So they changed that so that it's clear as to what it really means. So the rules have been relaxed in a probably a fairly significant way. Now, and the word accidental shows up in the rules a lot. Accidental or deliberate. So when things are accidental, there's a lot of relaxation, and when you do things on a reasonable basis, there is no penalty in some situations. So now, when you're searching for your ball, if you accidentally move it, no penalty, and you just replace it where it was. And if you don't know the exact spot, because likely you don't, because you may have kicked it when you were looking for it, if you're in the fescue and you accidentally moved the ball, then you just estimate where that should be. It used to be that you would drop the ball in most cases. So now you just put it back where it was. If it happened to be under some grass, well, unfortunately, you have to stick it back under that grass. So again,
do you have to inform anybody?
no, you don't have to. If you do that, if somebody else is marking your scorecard, you don't have to inform them that you may want to, because they may wonder what you're doing, kind of thing. But you can just tell it was an accidental movement. Usually, it's more than one person looking for the ball. But anytime there's an accidental movement, then even if you can see the ball and you're reaching under a bush and you're trying to, you're still searching for a ball that happens to be yours, and you move it, no penalty. Just put the ball back. On the putting green, a lot of organizations had a local rule in the past to deal with a ball on the putting green, but if you move a ball on the putting green accidentally, hit it with your putter, just when you're marking, you move it, you drop something on it, the ball moves, and usually it happens when you're taking a practice stroke and you hit the ball, no penalty, you just replace the ball, and again, if you don't know the exact spot, you estimate. Put the ball back, no penalty. And in the past, all of that would have been a one-stroke penalty.
I have a question on
Sir.
the green with putting. You go up and address your ball and you put your club down a couple inches behind it and the ball moves. That's no longer a penalty? Or is it?
Well, it won't be a penalty. You can avoid penalties with the ball moving on the putting green in just about every situation. We'll go through a little further on. We'll talk about the causes of a ball moving, whether you cause it to move or somebody else caused it to move. So we'll look at what you do in those kind of situations so that you can avoid a penalty. I mean, if you play from a wrong place, if you don't deal with it properly, you could end up with a penalty. But as long as you follow the proper procedure, and we'll take a look at that a little later on, okay? When you're making a stroke, if you happen to hit your equipment or the golf cart is out there and you hit your golf bag, or the ball comes back and hits you, no longer a penalty. It was always a one-stroke penalty in the past. So it's accidental. Nobody usually does that on purpose. So this is another accidental situation that you just play. In this case, you play the ball as it lies, and no penalty. And it's usually already a bad shot, so. Once you guys- And here's another one where it was already a bad shot. If you accidentally hit the ball more than once, which can happen coming out of the bunker, can happen coming out of the rough, on the putting green, follow through a little bit, hit the ball more than once. In these situations, it's accidental and no penalty. Play the ball as it lies. So. And another significant area is being allowed to remove loose impediments in bunkers and in penalty areas, formerly waterheads. So for those of you still thinking of it as hazards, is that you couldn't touch loose impediments, you couldn't even touch them in the past, but now you can remove them. So loose impediments in the bunkers and in the penalty areas. And we'll take a look at what you can do in the penalty areas, how you can play in the penalty areas a little later on as well. Damaged clubs. If you damage a club during the round, prior to this, you couldn't play. You basically had to take it out of play if you broke the club and or changed its playing characteristics. So now you have a maximum of 14 clubs. That's the maximum. So if you damage one of those clubs, you can continue to play with that club if you want, no matter what the damage. If you cause the damage, one of those, and that putter over the knee, you can still continue to play with that, but you cannot replace it. You can have it repaired, but the only things you have to keep the club all together. You can repair the head, the shaft, or the grip, but you can't replace it. So you can have it repaired, but in most cases now you can play with those clubs if they're damaged for whatever reason. However, if the damage occurs before the round, then you've ended up with a non-conforming club. So if you're on the driving range and you damage your club, crack it or what have you, or somehow bend it, then that is not a conforming club anymore. So you cannot use that in your round. You'll have to replace that. That's okay. These are all the in the past, there was only limited situations where you could substitute a ball. Now, anytime you're going to take relief, in other words, you're going to be dropping a ball, you can substitute a ball. So, but in situations where you're going to replace the ball, in other words, you're marking and replacing the ball, you have to use the original ball. So you can't use that special putting ball and putting green. So replacing a ball anywhere, you have to use the original ball. But anytime you're going to be dropping, if you want to replace the ball for whatever reason, doesn't matter, you can replace it, no penalties. An embedded ball, formerly you were only allowed to get free relief for an embedded ball, which is embedded is in its own pitch mark, if it was in what we call closely mown areas, and that was basically the fairway and the fringe around the green. So if it was embedded in its own pitch mark, where it landed, then you were able to get free relief. Now that is expanded to what we call the general area. For most of you, that's the rough. At the end of the day, any other rough. So we'll talk about what the general. We'll go through the description of the general area later on. But so now that's expanded. So if the ball is embedded in the rough now, you can get free relief, and we'll go through all the relief procedures later on. So if it's in anywhere where the grass is longer, then if it's embedded again in its own pitch mark, which early in the season can happen quite easily. So again, you get free relief, and we'll go through the relief procedures. Yeah.
In some pot bunkers, they're sodded, and if you embed it in there,
It's embedded in what we call the general area. Sod bunker is just because of its shape. It's not really a bunker per se. So it's part of what we call the general area. So if it's embedded, then you would get relief, and we'll go through the relief procedure. So which has been expanded as well.
okay, so I was referring to pot bunkers that has
face?
The face of it, you know,
Like a Friday?
no, because it's like a wall.
It's like a wall, yeah, just a dirt wall.
Yes, and often it's got sawed pieces, like bricks on it.
Yeah,
And sometimes, if you don't get the ball up, it'll go straight in.
go straight in. Well, we'll take a look at that when we get to taking relief for that embedded ball. We'll take a look at that, and because there may be situations where you can't get free relief if you can't get to a position where you can get free relief, or in some situations you can get free relief. I don't know if you saw, I think it was J.B. Holmes in one of the early events this year, hit it out of the bunker, but he hit it into the grass right in front of the bunker, and the ball was eventually determined to be embedded, and he got really good relief as opposed to have to hitting off something like that. He got himself a club length away, which is where your relief areas are now, and so he was able to end up in a pretty good position. But when we get to that a little later on, we'll go through that same scenario again, and so you can see it graphically. So. Now it says there, except in sand in areas not cut to fairway height. So if you're in the rough and you're in a sandy area, it's embedded in that sand, you don't get free relief from that. But if the sand is in the fairway, if you have a sandy area in the fairway and it's embedded in that, then you would get free relief from that.
So cut to fairway height, you mean like a waste bunker?
No, a waste bunker would be part of the general area, but
Yeah.
it's not closely mown. So a waste bunker, if it was in a waste bunker, then that would, if it was embedded in that, you would not get relief from that.
So what do you mean by sand in not cut to fairway height?
Well, what you get relief for what we call the general area.
Yeah, so like if I hit it into the bunker and it plugs in the top of the bunker, I get relief. But if it's in the sand, I don't. Because it's embedded in its ball
That's
mark.
correct, yeah.
But you're saying except in sandy area, not kite to fairway height or less.
Yeah, you get relief except in those particular areas. Sort of a bit of saying it sort of backward is that you now get relief anywhere
Except a bunker.
the general area, except sand that is in, I would say, the rough, because it's sand in areas not cut to fairway height, which would be all the rough areas that you're.
No, I know, but I don't understand like the sand in the rough part.
Well, if you had a sandy area, such as a waste area is a sandy area that
Yeah.
is not in the closely mown,
Yeah.
just because there. If you embedded a ball in that, then you would not get relief.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really what it means.
So just everywhere except sand.
Everywhere except sand,
Okay.
yes. Correct, yeah. Probably would have been an easy way to say it. Have here caddy may mark or lift the ball on the putting green. So for those of you that may be in some competitive events, the caddy rules have changed a bit. But anytime we talk about caddies here, we also talk. It also applies to partners. So in any of your partner games out there, whatever caddies can do, or when it talks about caddies, it applies to the partners, and we'll see another situation later on where it's important from a partner perspective. So your best balls and for in-match plays and short plays. The rules also contain a lot of support for pace of play, and ready golf in a safe and responsible way is encouraged in there, and there never was a penalty for playing out of turn in stroke play. Match play is different because it's a strategic game, but in stroke play there never was a penalty, and still is not. So you can play ready golf. If you're ready and somebody else isn't, go ahead and play. Nobody's getting an advantage with respect to that. Time for search has been reduced to 3 minutes, and in most of our events, our competitive events, players rarely look for a ball for 3 minutes. 2 minutes they didn't find the ball in a place where they could play it, they went to their provisional ball or went back to where they previously played it from. There's an expanded use of called the red penalty areas, and it used to be is that it would only be water where you would have red or yellow penalty areas. So now red areas can be anywhere that your committee decides that this is a place where we should allow somebody to play relief. because the rules of what you can do in a penalty area have changed as well. And so we'll take a look at that. But if in a penalty area, if you can play out of it without any penalties and in a more relaxed way, we'll see later on, or you can decide to take relief. So with that, it may speed up pace of play. Simplified dropping procedures. Dropping from the knee, probably seen a few of the professional players sort of criticizing a little bit, but the whole idea of dropping from the knee is that there will be fewer redrops. Is that where the ball is now, you have to drop it from the knee, so it's a lower down. You drop in a relief area, the likelihood is it will stay in the relief area, and you won't have to go through redrops and then placing the ball. So again, little time savers. Putting with the flag stick in the hole. So that, we're talking seconds as, type of thing, but it's also a lot of back and forth for balls that are further away. So it just means the players don't have to walk back and forth, so saving a little time. In the rules, it's also encouraging players to make strokes in less than 40 seconds. And 40 is the maximum. Saying you should be able to do it in less than 40 seconds. And so, if you've ever, when you play with somebody, if they're playing in 60 seconds or if they take a minute and a half to make a stroke, that's like an eternity. You're waiting. And there is a new maximum score form of play. And this is sort of in addition to something like Stableford, where, you're not going to get any points for the hole or maximum. And it's whatever the committee decides. The maximum score could be double par, could be double bogey, triple bogey, whatever the committee decides in that particular competition for it to be. But the important thing is that when people get the maximum score, they pick up and move on. If you continue to play out, you're not going to save any time. And if you think of it, 10 seconds, if every player could, or one player, reduce the time for each stroke 10 seconds for, say, 90 strokes, that's 15 minutes. So seconds add up, and so when you have a foursome out there, those seconds really add up, and that's why a lot of rounds extend half an hour or an hour more, is because those seconds just add up. Yes.
That point, maximum score form of play, is that a rule of golf? Are we responsible to do that now? Is that what
Well, you're not responsible to do it. It's an alternate form of play that is now allowed in the rules. So before there was you couldn't play that. If you want to play by the rules, you couldn't play that way before. Now, those things may have, different effects from a handicap perspective. But the handicap, I don't think Golf Canada has sort of, addressed some of those issues on a handicap basis yet. But now, if you play maximum score, in most cases, if your score is lower than it otherwise would have been, you're not going to end up with a higher handicap. You'll end up with a lower handicap. So as I mentioned, what's changed is in the dropping procedures. What hasn't changed is the player must drop the ball. That's always been the same, and the ball must be dropped from knee height. And people may have complained about, how do you get to knee height? How do you get there fast? And how exact is it? Well, most knees are at least like 4 inches or so. The ball is about 1.6 and plus inches, so you can get a 1.5 inch each side of your knee for that. So you end up with about 7 inches that you can get down and drop the ball. So it's not meant to be an exact science, but it's just to get you into that position. And you don't have to drop it on the side or what have you. It's just most people have to bend over a little bit to play the shot. So it's just another couple of inches down with respect to that. So, and the ball must be dropped in a relief area. And it must come to rest in that relief area as well. So if we look here, the graphic on the left, we have a player dropping from knee height into a relief area. The shaded area is a relief area. And relief areas, in this case, it's 1 club length from what we call a reference point. And so the ball has dropped in the relief area, has come to rest in the relief area. So that is that's an appropriate drop. So the ball is in play in that situation. In the middle one, the player dropped from knee height, dropped it into the relief area, but the ball has not come to rest in the relief area. It's bounced out, which is going to happen on slopes and things like that. And in that situation, you should redrop. And if the ball, that happens a second time, then you place, because you dropped appropriately, but the ball has not ended up where it should. The one on the right, the player has dropped from knee height, but has not dropped in the relief area. So that is not an appropriate drop. They haven't followed the correct procedure. In this case, the ball has rolled into the relief area. But you have to be concerned about that because while the ball is in the right place, you haven't dropped correctly, and that would be a one-stroke penalty. So on the one on the right side, yeah. One-stroke penalty because you've dropped, all that you've done is the procedure has not, it's a procedure thing. So most procedure issues are just one-stroke penalty. So you dropped it incorrectly, but it's in the right place. The one in the middle, even though you dropped it correctly, the ball is outside the relief area. So what's happening in that situation is you're playing from a wrong place. When you play from a wrong place, that's a two-stroke penalty.
So you can redrop.
You can redrop. The one on the right is what we call a non-drop. In other words, you haven't dropped the ball. So you really have to go back and do number one, or the one on the left, and if it drops out again, then you replace it. But it has to end up, it has to strike the course, and it has to be in the relief area. So that's, otherwise it's, haven't done things correctly.
How many times can you redrop the ball?
Well, in the middle situation, you drop it twice. Twice, because you drop correctly, but it's not in the right place. It's rolled out. So you drop twice, and then you place after that.
Would you place where you drop where it
Where
dropped?
you place where it hit the ground on the second drop.
All right.
Okay. The one on the right, there's no limit. In other words, you haven't done it correctly. So you keep dropping. In other words, you can keep dropping. When you haven't dropped, when you haven't followed the correct procedure, you keep dropping until, well,
Until somebody says you have to follow the
and
correct.
I don't know, I think Webb Simpson a year or two ago was trying to drop just right where he had the tee, right on the edge, because he was trying to manipulate what he was doing, and he dropped outside, and he probably did it 5 or 6 times before he got it into the inside of the area. So those were what we call non-drops, so it's just a nothing. So you really have to go back and get it right.
But there's this, you said there was when you've got 5 strokes, you're not dropping it in the right area.
No, you get, there's a rule there. When you don't do something correctly, you can correct it. So as long as you haven't made a stroke at the ball, you can correct it. There's no penalty. So you can correct, as long as you haven't made a stroke. If you drop the ball, place the ball, or substituted the ball incorrectly, you can always correct it for no penalty. Just do it right.
That's 1 stroke penalty for dropping it.
Oh no, not for. Only if you play the ball. Only if you play the ball.
Oh,
Excuse me.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going, okay.
Didn't mean to alert.
We're going to all be practicing golf for the next tonight.
So what we see here is some relief areas. If you're playing from the teen area is the relief area. So if you're playing like stroke and distance from the teen area, then that's your relief area. The relief area in the middle. What did I do here?
You got 3 minutes.
20 minutes to find myself. What do you need? I'm just trying to go forward.
Yeah, try it manually.
Computer first.
It might be that thing.
Yeah, the next one. Well, actually, this has got a piece that shows this one. Just hit it down. Yeah, just do that, and then I'll just click right down. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to reboot it. So what you saw there was a semicircle. So the relief area for most of your drops, first of all, you find a reference point. And the black dot that you saw there is a reference point. So in all your dropping relief situations, you find a reference point. Put a T in, and other than two situations which we'll go through, it's all one club length from that reference point. And the club length is the longest club in your bag, excluding your putter. So it doesn't matter whatever club you measure with, it's predefined with what you've got in your bag. It's that longest club, which is your driver in most cases. So, and that is, no matter what club you decide to measure with, that is the relief area, and that's where the ball has to be dropped into that area and has to come to rest in that area. When you're on the putting green, when we're finding the near the spot, you don't drop on the putting green, you place. So we'll see when you get so in that middle one, whether you're in a penalty area or a bunker or a what we call the general area, that relief area, it's also those club lengths are no closer to the hole. So in a lot of situations, it's going to be like a semicircle. In some others, and we'll see, you may end up with an arc. Okay.
We have to go next time.
Just go.
Start on the slide.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That's good.
And the club you measure with has the head cover removed.
Head cover removed, yeah. Take the head covers off when removing that. So the important thing too is that you may measure with a shorter club. Like if you measure with your 9-iron, that's as long as you drop within that 9. If it goes outside that 9 area, as long as it's still in play until it gets outside the longest club in your bag. So you just have, in some cases, you just have to be careful that you don't measure with a shorter club and then pick your ball up because you think you have to drop it again when it's still, when the ball is in play. Okay, ball moving. The question came up earlier about a ball moving. There's been a change here. So a ball has moved if it leaves its spot and comes to rest someplace else, but only if you know, so somebody has seen it move, or it's quite obvious that it moved just because of where the ball is, or known or virtually certain. So, and that known or virtually certain is 95%. So that's, you've got to know that the ball has moved before it's moved. If you think it may have moved but nobody really knows, then you just treat it as not being moved. Play it as a box. So this is no. Okay.
Good question.
Sure, yeah.
So if we go back to your areas of relief and the semicircle and so on and
Yeah.
so forth, one of the examples you showed was in a bunker.
Yeah.
When would you take relief in a bunker?
You could have a unplayable ball relief in a bunker, or you could have abnormal obstructions in a bunker, such as temporary water, or you could have like a drain, an immovable obstruction, like sometimes there's drain covers in bunkers. And so those you get free relief from. An unplayable ball would be it's penalty relief, but that's where you would get that kind of relief. And we'll go through with that relief. That would be what we call back on the line relief, and we'll go through that. Yep, another question.
If you hit a shot and your ball comes to rest, and everybody knows it's come to rest, then the wind picks it up and rolls it further away or closer.
Okay, in that situation, there's 4 things that can cause a ball to move. One is natural forces, so that's your wind, gravity, and in those situations, if a ball excluding the putting green, but if a ball moves by those forces, then you play the ball as it lies. Now, if you're on the putting green, that rule still applies unless you've lifted and replaced your ball under a rule. And if you've lifted and replaced the ball, in those situations, you put the ball back. So I've probably seen some situations on the Masters in the past where on the 15th hole, the wind has moved the balls and it's rolled it back into the creek. Well, now as long as the player has lifted, and we say lifted and replaced because in some cases you may get to lift the ball without having to mark it, but in most cases you're going to be marking, lifting, and replacing the ball. If you've done that, then there's no penalty, and you replace the ball where it is. If the wind blows the ball on the putting green before you've done that, then you play the ball as it lies. So now, the second thing that can happen is the player moves the ball. So if the player moves the ball, and we're not talking the putting green, because I talked earlier about the putting green if you accidentally move it on the putting green, but if the player purposely moves it on the putting green or accidentally moves it anywhere else, there's a one-stroke penalty on that, but you have to replace the ball. And again, because it hasn't been marked, if you're not sure of the exact spot, you estimate and replace the ball. The third thing that can happen is that in match play, your opponent can move the ball. And if it's accidental, then no penalty and you replace it back, but if it's moved purposely, the opponent would get a one-stroke penalty. And again, you replace the ball, and because you're not sure the exact, you estimate. So, and then the fourth thing is outside influence can move the ball. Like say an animal moves the ball. So if you, again, this is situations you have to be known or virtually certain that that animal has moved the ball, and then you replace it. No penalty, but if the and again, if you don't know the exact spot, just estimate it. And but if you're not sure, like sometimes if you have a blind green, one ball may hit another. You don't know that that a ball was at rest was moved. So in those situations, if nobody knows, then you just play it as it lies. So those are the four things that can cause a ball to move.
So if you hit the ball onto the green and it's stable, it's sitting there, and you're walking, because you may take you a couple minutes to walk up, big gust of wind comes, rolls it back into a hazard of some type, you still have to play it where it lies. Because you haven't marked the ball.
What if a competitor picks up your ball?
Play that one right there, because that's really partial.
Not necessarily, though.
What
if a competitor picks up your ball? So I've had happen before where I've hit a ball into a fairway, and then the group in front has come back because someone's hit a provisional, picked up the ball, taken it, and then we go up there and there's like 2 of 3 balls in the fairway.
Yeah.
And then you go up and ask the person, "Did you take my ball?"
Yeah.
And they go, "Oh yeah, my bad." Does that person still get a penalty?
That person doesn't get a penalty because it's accidental. That person is an outside influence. So in that kind of situation, that person being an outside influence, you just put the ball back, no penalty, and away you go. I don't know if that one will just have to hit enter. That'll.
Is it working on your own?
No. Working on your thinking.
Batteries?
I think it's 3 things.
But it doesn't even work. It doesn't matter.
I wouldn't worry about that particular one. We go to the slide after that one. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
We're going to start from the next slide.
Sure, yeah.
Past the video.
Past the video, yeah. I've taken all the videos out. Well, the videos are hidden slides, so. So go to this slide here. about the old analog situation. We mentioned the areas of the courses. There's 5 areas of the course. We mentioned the teen area, and the teen area, not a lot of change here except the definition of club length. So again, it's a rectangular box. The outside edges of the 2 tee markers and 2 club lengths in depth. So it's your 2 longest club in the bag, 2 club lengths in depth. You have bunkers, talked about, penalty areas. So you can have penalty areas now that may not have any water in them at all. Maybe a bunch of trees, maybe an area where balls get lost all the time, and whatever the committee decides they want to deal with that. And then we have the putting green. And the putting green is the green on the hole that you're playing. And the teen area is only the teen area of the hole that you're playing. Everything else outside of those is what we call a general area. So all other putting greens are part of what we call the general area. All other tee boxes on any other hole or even any teen areas that are on the hole that you're playing, those are all part of the general area. So any rules that relate to those, strictly, that's how you play it. I mentioned abnormal course conditions, and there's 4 things that are abnormal course conditions. That definition contains 4 other definitions, and one of them is an animal hole, and formerly it used to be a burrowing animal hole, but we'll go through the change in that. Ground under repair, you're all familiar with that, and immovable obstructions are now part of what we call abnormal course conditions. So, and temporary water, we call it casual water, but it's really water that's just on the course on a temporary basis. So just rename it. So those are the 4 things that that are what we call an abnormal course condition. Now, animal hole, it used to be a burrowing animal, but now it's any animal. So if a dog out there digs a hole somewhere, doesn't matter. That's it's a hole dug by an animal. And those who golf in Florida, you have birds that dig up the holes on the course and create holes as well. Also, any loose sand that comes out of the loose soil that comes out of that animal hole is also a part of that animal hole. Now, you're not allowed to move sand and loose soil other than on the putting green. That's the only place you can move sand or loose soil. So you've got to be careful when you're anywhere but the putting green. Well, an animal hole, you can get what we call relief for an abnormal course condition, which is free relief. You don't want to move the sand or loose soil because that's improving improving your what we call conditions affecting the stroke, and that can cause a penalty. Maybe we just do it that way, is just click on each one as we go. How's that going to work? Down the side. Oh, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, this video is here.
So, we'll talk about relief from these abnormal course conditions. I mean, this is free relief. So if you have any of these 4 situations, what you do is determine what we call the nearest point of complete relief, and as opposed to the nearest point or the nicest point of relief. It's the nearest point of complete relief. So you have to, in most cases, if you're on a cart path, if this is the cart path on this side, and I'm a left-handed golfer, but if your ball is sitting there, your nearest point of relief is right over on the course on this side. Most of you can't see that, but there's a line down here that, see if we can't get, you click on down a couple more, this one right here, 26. So if we look on, if we have an abnormal course condition here, this will, so if we have, that could be ground under repair, could be temporary water. And so what we've determined here is that the nearest point of complete relief is where that black dot is. So that's your reference point, your nearest point of complete relief. You put a T in there, you measure your club length. In this case, you have a semicircle. And again, you drop in there. And for abnormal course conditions, that's basically how you get relief.
So how do you determine where the black dot is? Does also club length away from the?
No, what it's the nearest point. The nearest point to where the ball lies, as to where you would have relief from complete relief from the lie of the ball, the area of your stance, and the area of your swing.
No closer to the hole.
No closer to the hole. So it could be, depending on where that ball lies, the nearest point of complete relief could be on the left side, the right side, but it's the nearest point to where the ball lies. And in some cases, you may have to measure. You know, and if we go to the next slide, yeah, that slide right here. Okay, here's your typical situation. You have a cart path. So we have the ball at B1, and we have a right-handed golfer here. So for a right-handed golfer, the ball at B1, the nearest point of complete relief, you think of stance, swing. So the swing includes the follow-through, the stroke, the back stroke and follow-through, cannot touch that cart path during the stroke. So P1 takes care of all of that. Now in this situation, it's not a semicircle, it's just a smaller part of the arc because no closer to the hole, complete relief. So that's your typical one for a cart path. Now, for a ball on B, where B2 is, the player standing on the cart path. So you can always play it that way. This is only if you want relief. Any of these situations are only if you want relief. So for the ball at B2, for the player to, if he wants to take relief, you assume the cart path is not there, and you determine to say what club would you have used to make that stroke, assuming you were going to do it without the cart path there. That's the club you use to determine the point P2. P2 becomes your, called the nearest point of complete relief. Then the relief area is then determined. Again, it's P2 is your reference point, one club length from that reference point, no closer to the hole, and with complete relief. And so you have like a quarter of a circle there as your relief area.
So if you were using a pitching wedge, for example, or you're on the cart path, you would take a pitching wedge length.
Well, no, you would take it where you would place your club to make the stroke. P2 is where that would be.
Oh, okay.
Then once you've done that, you can use any club you want to make the stroke. Using that club is just how you determine that nearest point of complete relief. And then you can use any club thereafter to make your stroke because you're in a different position. So the rules aren't holding you to making the stroke because you're not in the same spot.
So you couldn't automatically just use a driver if you're only 50 yards from the club.
No, that's right. If you were to give you like further up than P2, you couldn't. If you would normally not use your driver, unless you were going to punch a shot or something, whatever that would be. So, but it depends on the situation. So.
If there's an obstruction in the relief area by P1, then you choose another relief area?
No, by P1, no, what you do, anytime you have two relief areas, like let's say that you have a cart path, but there's temporary water over there, you do it in sequence. So if you have two, if when taking relief, you end up in another abnormal course condition.
What about a tree?
Tree is not an abnormal course condition, so if the tree is in the way, then that's sort of too bad.
It's not that. Too bad.
On our hole number 2, we have your cart path or the hazard on the other side in P1.
Yeah.
I think that's
So-
what Lorenzo was looking at.
What Tom said well before, it's your nearest point of relief, not your nicest.
Yes, I know. So you would, if you were a right-handed golfer, you would have to go.
Depends on how close you are.
Well, normally in a situation where you have a cart path and you have
A penalty area.
a penalty area, you would mark the penalty area right on the cart path so that you don't end up with a very narrow spot, because it's usually not fair to, it may be fair to a right-handed but not a left-handed, or vice versa. So you try to do it so that in that case you're taking relief from that penalty area. You may have to drop on the cart path, because that, if it's wide enough, you may drop on the cart path. Then you take relief from the cart path. So what you don't do is you don't combine relief procedures. You go through one and then the other. Now, in the situation that was mentioned back here, that you have a cart path, and let's say you had temporary water, you may have two of them that are right close together, and your stance is in one and your ball is in another, or vice versa. You decide as a player which one you want to take from first, and then if you end up in another one, then you can take that one second. So you can use that to your advantage, which order you want to take them. If you have two of them, and you're still in one after you take relief from the other. So.
But if you're taking, like, her comments, that was my question, like, I'm a tall person. If I drop in P1 on the second hole, I'm probably dropping into the penalty area.
Well, you wouldn't drop in the penalty.
So I can go to the other side?
It has to be, yeah.
Okay.
Because in that case, if we had the line right along
Yeah.
that, then...
Because there's like cart path, and then there's like a tiny little bit of grass this way, and then it's the hazard.
Well, we wouldn't normally do that, because other than that, if that was the case, having to stand, you're allowed to stand in the penalty area to make a shot.
Yeah, but you can't take a drop into a penalty area.
But normally we wouldn't mark a course like that. You would mark it so that when you're in when you get the penalty, to the relief, because that would, in some cases,
I'm not going to drop into a red hazard and take another drop.
To do that, because then you'd end up to a right-handed player or a left-handed player would have to stand on the cart path and then would get relief. So, yeah.
So I could drop, if I was right on that edge, if you dropped on the other side, you could drop on the cart path and then you get relief again from that. And
If you're,
P2 is?
well, P2
is standing on the cart path.
He's standing on the cart path here. So, and the ball is here, so using the club he would have played for this one, you find this point right here, and then you take relief. Then you can use whatever club you want. After that, you decide, it's a different situation. Then you use whatever club you want.
The point is that you take a relief from that course, you can't cross it.
No.
So if I were there, where do I drop on number 2?
It must be in
Now, your nearest point is happy, towards the hazard.
Yes.
You're not able to drop, penalty area.
Penalty area?
Penalty area, you're not going to the other side.
Right, okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Sorry, I'm sorry, we didn't hear that back here. If we look at this, Todd, if we specifically look at the second hole of the long course at Thornhill, you're a right-handed player and you're P1, and you drop in that relief area, your feet might be in the hazard. But if you're a left-handed player, you'd be standing on the cart path and your relief would be over on the fairway on the right-hand side.
Correct, so when you take relief like that, you're not able to now take your drop into a penalty area, and you also have to take full relief. So if you're choosing to take relief from the cart path in that circumstance, you can't necessarily drop the ball and still be standing on the cart path. So you have to automatically come to the east side of that cart path or towards the fairway on the second hole.
Okay, but if you're a right-handed player and you're in P1,
If you're a
you
right-handed
take your
player-
relief, you take your relief to the left of the cart path.
If there's space
And
here
your
to take
feet-
relief, yeah.
Your feet are probably standing in the river.
In the hazard.
In the hazard.
You cannot drop in the hazard.
No, I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about dropping in the hazard. Your feet, your ball will
You're
be,
standing in the hazard.
you're
Yes.
standing in the hazard. Is that,
Well, if there is space over here to drop the ball, part of the what we call the general area, and you'd have to be standing in the hazard or the penalty area,
too bad?
then too bad.
That's right.
So that's why I say when we mark the course, a lot of times, if that was the situation, we'd mark it right here, so you wouldn't create that situation, because one player, the other player would get relief, and one player.
Sometimes it's a little bit more, it narrows and you get closer. Yeah. So in most cases, you might have
difference when you're on a putting green and you have an abnormal course condition. The likelihood on a putting green is you'll have temporary water or ground under repair. Or it could be, in most cases, you won't have a sprinkler head on the putting green, but if you have temporary water, what you can do here, you get, in addition to relief for the area of the swing, your stance, and the line of the ball, you get line of play relief. So in this situation, the nearest point of relief is likely, could be right there normally. But because you get line of play relief, you get to move the ball over to here, and you place the ball. Since that's your nearest point of complete relief, you play, and on the putting green, you place the ball, you don't drop the ball. So you place it on the nearest point of complete relief. So now the only caveat that goes along with that is that depending on where your abnormal course condition is, that your nearest point of complete relief could be off the putting green in some circumstances. Depends on where it is and what the shape of the putting green is. And in those situations, if you want relief and it is off the putting green, because that's the nearest point of complete relief, then you have to go off the putting green, and you still place the ball, even though it's in the rough or in the fringe or something. But that's just a situation that occurs in those situations.
So in that situation, when it's on the green, you have to get complete relief from the abnormal course condition. So in other words, if you're a right-handed putter, and then you place the ball there, your feet would be in the water.
No, you take complete relief. So for a right-hander, the likelihood is that's where your nearest point of complete relief is going to be. So it's not necessarily the same for everybody. So it's just based on the player and in your situation.
Excuse me. So
Yep.
if that abnormal course condition, if your ball isn't in it, but if your ball is behind the abnormal course condition, you can still
You
move it.
still get, because you get line of play relief. So even though nothing else, so if the ball was down here, then you could, and this is a situation, let's just say your ball was here, and right on the edge of the green, and you want to get line of play relief. If your nearest point of relief was here, on the fringe or in the rough, if you wanted relief, that's where you would place your ball, if that was the nearest point, being equidistant.
So no closer.
No closer to the hole. Yeah. Okay, so we have an abnormal course condition in a bunker. So that was brought up. So you could have temporary water or ground under repair in a bunker. So if you want relief in those situations, you still get the relief. And again, it's the nearest point. So we have a right-handed player here. So there's the nearest point of complete relief. You take that one club length and that one club length. So it's a little different. It's not any kind of like an arc or a half an arc, but it's just as long as you have complete relief for your stroke and your stance and your area of swing, that is your relief area, and you drop in there. So you're dropping in the bunker. Now, situation when you're in a bunker and you have an abnormal course condition, for the price of one penalty stroke, you can get yourself out of the bunker in what we call back on the line relief. So you either take relief in the bunker from an abnormal course condition, or for one stroke, you take, and back on the line relief is a line from the flag through where the ball lies, and just outside the bunker. So anywhere on that line, you can go back as far as you want. When you take back on the line relief, and we'll see it in a few other situations, you go back as far as you want. What you do is you find a reference point on that line. So you pick one, so you put a T in, and then you take one club length from that reference point. So that gives you, again, this large semicircle situation, because you're taking back on the line, so you're directly behind. Now, in the past, when you took back on the line relief, you had to drop on the line, or as close to the line as possible. But now you have this larger relief area. Again, so that should make things go quicker as well.
You can still go back as far as you want?
You can go back as far as you want. But it has to be out of the bunker, and the only problem then is that you have to hit over the bunker. So that's,
And you get a stroke.
and you take a one-stroke penalty.
Hey, I was at a course one time and a truck had gone through the the bunker and left big ruts where my ball ended up, would that be abnormal?
I would call it abnormal.
Okay.
And, but what it has, you know, you have to, depends if you're in a competition.
I was.
Yeah, okay, well then what you have to do is have one of the referees, you know, determine that that is ground under repair.
Okay.
So, and that's what would happen in a competition, that
All right, now somebody else goes through there and leaves big gouged footprints. Is that abnormal?
that's
That's a shame.
That's just something to take a break, right?
That's great in a few minutes.
They probably issue a code of conduct.
But it's not abnormal, okay.
So is this a situation where you use the club that you would normally use, or
You
do
would
you
still
use
use
any
the club. Anytime you're determining the nearest point of relief, you use the club you would normally use. But in a situation like this, it's not going to make any difference because you're going to be, wherever you place it, no matter what club, it's just the nearest point of complete relief. So in a lot of situations, and like we saw in P1, where that one with P1 is that it really doesn't matter in those situations because it's always going to be the same spot.
You use the word placed in the bunker. Do you place in the bunker or do you drop?
You drop in the bunker. If I said place, that was incorrect. So you drop in the bunker. And again, now, when you're dropping in the bunker, since you're dropping from knee height, the likelihood of the ball embedding as much as it had in the past is less. Okay, we can go to the next. Another kind of obstruction is a movable obstruction. So the typical one is rakes, but it can be, you know, anything artificial. An obstruction is anything that's artificial. So your typical one is a rake. So if you're allowed to, in these cases, you don't move the ball, you move the obstruction, the movable obstruction. So, and in moving, if the ball moves, there is no penalty. And it doesn't matter whether the ball is resting against the rake or that movable obstruction or anything. So you get to move that, and if it happens to move the ball in doing so, you just replace the ball. Some people mark the ball so that they know exactly where it is, but you don't have to. You just replace the ball, again, estimate if you don't know where it is. What you don't want to do is put your finger on the ball, or you remove it, because that's touching the ball, and that costs you one stroke penalty.
But that's not new.
This is not new. This has always been the same. A lot of people didn't really know that if the ball moved, that you could replace it without penalty, no penalty.
And what if that breaking ball is in a bunker?
Same situation. Movable, you're allowed to make or move movable obstructions in a bunker. So, and the same thing is in a penalty area. Movable obstructions in penalty areas. You move. You're allowed to move, and if the ball moves, then you just replace it.
Even if you like, if you like when the ball is better.
Yeah.
So, Tom, sorry, just a quick point on this as well, too, and this might come up in a lot of conversations Greg had in regards to the placement of rakes around bunkers.
Good.
Yeah.
Because clearly if you're in a bunker again, and the ball rolls up against the rake, then moves, some people might be a little confused about what to do with the ball, but Golf Canada have a recommendation on where to place rakes?
We place rakes outside the bunkers.
Which Greg might not like to hear, but.
Well, because it affects, maintenance is a big issue, over the time to do it. But when it's outside a bunker, if the ball moves, you get to replace it. The problem sometimes in bunkers is that because you may not be able to, if the rake was right at the very back of the bunker, you may not have a spot where a nearest point of complete relief that is no closer to the hole. So you may end up, if you end up in that kind of situation just because of where the rake was placed, then you may have to take your one-stroke penalty to get yourself in a spot where the ball, because what you can't do in the bunker is, okay, the ball won't stay where you're placing it, but you can't push it in. You can't change the lie of the ball. So that's a kind of situation where trying to take that kind of relief that would cause you grief.
So rakes outside of bunkers.
We normally put them outside of bunkers, and again, it's an ongoing discussion. We have a situation here where the ball lands on a movable obstruction, towel, piece of plastic, whatever out there, chip bag, In those situations, the nearest point of complete relief is immediately below where it is. So what you do is you remove the obstruction and estimate the spot right below where the ball was. Now, you used to drop the ball and drop it right there, but now you have that nearest point of complete relief. You now have the same relief area. So basically take that, find that spot, one club length, drop the ball in the relief area. Same.
You could get it better.
You've got this, actually 2 club lengths in width. So you've got quite a large thing. So it should make it quicker to do all of this. So you don't have to do a lot of measuring if you're, if you're close to where you are. But you could end up with a much better line than what you had. Yep. Now, another change, as we mentioned about the embedded ball, is that where it can be embedded, but the relief area for the embedded ball has changed. In the past, you dropped the ball as close as possible to where the ball was embedded. Now, you take the relief area is immediately behind the reference point is immediately behind the ball. So then you take, that's your reference point, and you drop 1 club length from that. So you end up with this, again, a large area. You don't have to do a lot of measuring in these cases because the reference point is right behind the ball. Now, it was brought up earlier about if the ball is in the face of a bunker. Whether the definition of a bunker now is the areas that are covered by sand. So walls of bunkers, which used to be part of the bunker, is no longer part of the bunker. So that sand on that lip is not part of the bunker anymore, so if you touch that, not a penalty anymore. And also sodded faces or what have you of the bunker. So in a situation in a bunker, if you can get a spot immediately behind the ball, which is in the general area, because now that face of the bunker is what we call the general area. It's not the bunker, it's in the general area. So in order to get relief for an embedded ball, the ball has to be in the general area, and you have to find a relief point. You just have to be able to get that tee into some dirt right behind the ball. So it's immediately behind the ball. So if you can do that, then you get this kind of a relief area. If you can, and it's showing here a bit behind the ball, but it just has to be right behind the ball, basically.
But if you can't, in that case, because a lot of times it's like there and then it's sand.
But if you cannot find a part of the general area immediately behind the ball, then you don't get free relief. You'd have to take penalty relief, which you can. Penalty relief is unplayable ball relief, essentially. So, and we'll go through what it looks like for an unplayable ball, which costs you a penalty stroke. Okay. Right there. Yeah, we can go right to that slide there. Okay, we just talked about an unplayable ball. So now we'll take a look at unplayable ball relief. So if you're in the general area, this has not really changed. The options under an unplayable ball is you could always take number 1 is from where you previously played the ball. Number 2 is back on a line relief. And number 3 is 2 club lengths from where the ball is. So those are the same. But what has changed is number 1 and number 2. Number 1, you can see the relief area. So number 1 is actually playing under stroke and distance. So anytime you play the ball from where you previously played it, stroke and distance. So previously you would drop the ball as near as possible to where you played the ball. Now, where you played the ball from before is your reference point. And you take a 1 club length relief area for that. So now when you go back to play the ball, you play it there, you can just drop there. You don't have to do a lot of measuring. You don't have to try to get exactly to that spot because you have this whole 1 club length area. Number 2 is the same as we talked about getting out of the bunker. Back in a line relief is the same in all situations, whether they're penalty or free relief. So again, you can go back on a line from the flag, through where the ball lies, as far as you want. Pick a reference point, put your tee in, take 1 club length and drop.
That's penalty.
So these are all penalty, all one, yeah, you don't see it on the screen here, but all these 3 options are one penalty stroke. So, and number 3, again, is that's the same area that we always had. So we can go to this 40, yeah.
39?
Yeah, 39. So we talked about a bunker. When is a ball in a bunker? Well, as we can see on the face of the bunker, not in a bunker anymore. If the ball touches the bunker, lies on a loose impediment, or lies on a movable obstruction in a bunker, or any obstruction in a bunker, it's not in the bunker. But if there's grass in a bunker, if you have a grass area in a bunker, as you see up here, these are what they call these church pew bunkers that they have in some cases. But anytime you have a grassy area in a bunker, that is not part of the bunker. So you have little islands or things like that. Those aren't part of the bunker. Part of the general area. So what you do in those areas, you do not have to worry about the bunker.
So that one in the face of the bunker, you could get your tee right behind that.
Yeah, if it's sort of, it's like that. Sometimes if you can get your ball, if you can get it like just a tee, if you can find that there's a piece of the general area right behind that, then you can get, what you would get in this situation is that, let's just say we can get a tee in there.
Yeah.
Then you can get, your relief area is in the general area, no closer to the hole. So it would be one club length out this way and out this way. It depends on where the flag is. And if the flag was over here, you could get yourself out to here. But you can't come back in the bunker.
But
So
that's the embedded ball.
that's the embedded ball. Yeah.
So what happens with the one on the little island?
The little island, that's just like you're playing under the rough of the fairway. It's just you can ground your club, no problem. Just your ball is not in the bunker. So the only time you can't, we'll go through what you can't do in a bunker. But anytime the things you can't do in a bunker is when your ball is in the bunker. So if it's just your feet in the bunker, it's not an issue. So if you have to stand in the bunker to play that ball up on the grass, no issue. Let's go to 40. Yeah, just go down to 40. Yeah. Big thing here, I mentioned it before, is loose impediments. Now, when you're playing a ball in a bunker, you can move loose impediments. You always could move loose or movable obstructions like a rake. The only caveat is that if the ball moves when you move those loose impediments, then it's a one-stroke penalty, and you must replace the ball. So while you can do that, that includes rocks, stones, anything natural that you could move any other place. As long as it doesn't move the ball, yeah. So the restrictions in the bunker go to 41. So you do that if you want. As long as you're not testing the sand. Deliberately touch the sand with your hand, club, or rake for the purpose of testing. So it's a matter of testing the bunker, but you can lean on your club in the bunker if you're not testing it. Lean on the rake. When you're making a stroke, you're allowed to, in the general area, you're allowed to ground your club, be it in front of or behind the ball. Can't do that in a bunker, never could. Can't hit it with a practice swing. And in making a backswing for the stroke, which is where a lot of people touch the sand, that little groove, if you hit the sand on your backswing, because that's not part of your stroke. You're allowed to hit it on the stroke. Stroke is strictly the forward movement of your club with the intention to hit the ball. So again, you can't do that. Now, if we're in a bunker, and that slide there, yeah. 43? Excuse me, yeah. We can go right to 43. 42 is just a picture of some unplayable balls in a bunker. So we talked about unplayable ball in the general area. So if you're in a bunker, you can still take unplayable ball in a bunker. And again, the first three options are the same. And again, one stroke penalty. You can play up here for your stroke and distance. Relief area is the same. Back on a line, except for 2 and 3, when you're taking back on a line relief or lateral relief, it has to be in the bunker for your one-stroke penalty. And the only way, in the first three options, the only way to get out of the bunker is to play stroke and distance, so it depends on how far back you are. But has been added for an additional penalty stroke similar to the abnormal course conditions in a bunker. So for 2 penalty strokes, you can declare your ball unplayable anytime you're in the bunker and do back on a line relief, and again, you have to play over.
No matter whether it's unplayable or not, you decide.
You decide. It's the player's choice, unplayable. Yes.
You can call any ball unplayable.
any ball except in the penalty area. So any ball, anytime, except in the penalty area. So you can be hitting a couple of strokes out of here if you want, and then still before, when you had stroke and distance relief, once you made one stroke in the bunker, you were stuck. You were there sort of forever. But now, anytime you want to take for an extra penalty stroke, or 2 penalty strokes to get yourself out of the bunker. Okay, for those who don't like playing in the bunker, you're out. Let me go to this one right here. 45? Yeah, 45, yeah. Okay, in a penalty areas, not a lot of changes here. To be in a penalty area, you have to be virtually certain that your ball is in the penalty area. And if I can remember your second hole at all, but if you happen to hit your second shot and it goes into that penalty or towards that penalty area on the left, going down to the second hole, if there's a possibility that it could have got over by number 3T, then you're not virtually certain that your ball is in the penalty area. Now, if you see it go in and you're sure it's in, that's fine. But the virtual certainty is there. You've got to be 95% sure that your ball is in the penalty area. So, if you want to take relief to the penalty area instead of taking stroke and distance, you prefer a lost ball. So, in this situation, I think number 2, yeah. So, if you hit one, when it rolls across the cart path and you know it's in, but if you hit a high flyer and you're not really sure in those situations, it's a possibility. Anytime you can ask the question, is there a possibility the ball can be anyplace else? The answer is yes, then you don't have virtual certainty. So that's really the question you have to ask.
And then you hit a provisional.
Well, in that case, you have to go. What you have to do, if you don't have virtual certainty, you have to find, in order to get relief from a penalty area, you have to find your ball. So if you don't otherwise have that virtual certainty that it's in there, then you've got to go in and find it. So then you're off your 3 minutes. You don't find it in 3 minutes, it's a lost ball, and then you have to play stroke and distance.
Well, would you be better off to hit a provisional when you're back there and then?
Well, yeah, because if you don't know that it's in a penalty area, if you know it's in a penalty area, you're not allowed to hit a provisional. But if you don't know, then you're allowed to hit a provisional. And if you don't find your ball, then you hit that, you can continue on. How are we doing? Oh, yeah, I think we're in good shape here. Number 46. Big change in the penalty areas is that you can, say here, you can play the same as the general area. So now you're allowed to ground your club, take practice swings, remove loose impediments, hit those loose impediments, all the stuff you couldn't do before in a penalty area. Just think fairway, general area. You're allowed to do all of those things that you did there. So you play the ball as if it's the general area. The big thing about penalty areas now is that you can play in there, you can do all this stuff, or you can take relief, take one stroke penalty and take relief. So that's really the big situation with respect to penalty areas. And that doesn't matter whether it's a red penalty area or a yellow penalty area. I'm not sure how many yellows you have out here, but if you're playing the ball and you're not taking relief, you can play the ball, so you can take those sticks and twigs, you can move all of those out of the way, and you can take some practice swings and hit the ground and ground your club right behind the ball. Same thing.
That's like 3 in front of the little, like the little creek on 3. So now you can, so this one's a good one for that.
Yeah, 18 other places you're in that area, then you found your ball, then you can play it normally. Yeah. Okay, 47. No real change. If you're in a yellow penalty area, you have 2 options. Stroke and distance. Well, you can play it there, but if you want relief, it's penalty relief for 1 stroke. And so you have stroke and distance, which is back in number 1, or you have back on the line relief, which is from where the ball last crossed the edge of that penalty area. So in this case, it crossed here. So your back on the line is from the flag through where it crossed as far back as you want. And the only really change is that your relief areas have changed. This, again, back on the line relief, same as all the other back on the line relief, so very consistent. And again, the relief area here from where you previously played it, estimate that spot, and 1 club length, same relief. Anytime stroke and distance relief is the same everywhere. Now, if, for instance, that ball crossed over here, then if it hit, and I don't know if you have any of those situations here where it lands on the green side and then rolls back in. If that's the case, then where it last crossed, not on this side, it would be where it crossed on this side is your reference point, and then you would go back like that. So if you want to go back. Okay, just the next one there. Again, same situation on red penalty areas, same as your old lateral water hazards. Now you only have three options. In this case, where you see option number 1, the stroke and distance this player played from the teen area. So your relief area is the teen area. Anytime in your teen area you can tee up the ball, no problem. Again, back on the line relief, back through the line from where it crossed the edge of the penalty area. And here's where you get the second two club lengths, lateral relief. And this is the same as before, no real change. So the only 2 changes is 1 and 2. Okay, things you can do on, let's go to the putting green, number 50. Things you can do on the putting green. Big change here. There's only ball marks and old hole plugs that you could repair before. Now it's spike marks from any previous group. Your own spike marks, even if you make your own as you're walking around, you're actually allowed to touch the line of putt now, so that's not there's not the line of putt, it's line of play. Shoe damage, indents, somebody's poked the flag down, you're allowed to fix that. Somebody's hit it with a club, whether you've done it, then you can fix all of that. Embedded objects, another significant area is acorns and stones that get embedded. Before you could always pick those out, but you couldn't fix the hole. Now you can fix the hole, so a lot more things you can do on the putting green to make things back to normal. Yes?
Yeah, sir, just on your previous point on the lateral hazard penalty.
Yeah.
There used to be a 4th option, which was taken to the other side of the hazard and dropped no closer to the hole. That's gone.
That's gone, yeah.
Okay.
And the reason that it's gone is that you don't have to mark penalty areas yellow anymore. What we showed is the yellow one up here. You can just mark that red.
Yeah.
And what it means is that the reason they took it out is because if you have all red, you don't get to the other side. So it takes away requiring the yellow, which is a lot of times things were marked yellow to prevent players from being able to get to the other side and to avoid playing over a penalty area. So that can only come in by a local rule. So, I mean, it's there, but only by local rule. And things you can't do, the next slide, things you can't do, things like aeration holes or verticutting, things like that. Natural imperfections, you cannot fix any of those. Normal wear and tear on the green. So
what about damage to the cup?
Damage to the cup? Well, if it's made by,
Yeah, like someone goes to put the flag stick in and they...
You can fix it. It's just part of the putting green. You can fix that. Really bad damage, then you need to really call maintenance staff to deal with that. Flag stick, the other big change we talked about, putting with the flag stick in the hole. The only thing is that if you want the flag stick in the hole for a particular stroke, for that stroke, then don't take it out. If you leave it in the hole, when you're putting, if it hits it, then you play it as it lies, just like you do when you play from off the green right now when it hits it. But if you want the flag tended, remove. If somebody's tending that flag, they must remove it. Right? So, and if the ball hits it, then there's penalties for that. So you have the choice one way or the other. All you have to do is decide beforehand, and it doesn't mean you have to do it for each item on the for the whole time you're on there. It's for each individual stroke. So we've seen it on TV as they'll make a long putt with an end, and they'll pull it out and tap it in. So your choice. Wrong putting green. I'm not sure if you end up with those situations now. If you're on a wrong putting green, wrong green is anything other than the putting green of the hole that you're playing. And it used to be that you just had to get the ball up. Now you have to take total relief. So you've got to, if your ball is on there, even if that, so you've got to get your stance off the putting green as well. So you may be standing on the fringe, but everything has to be off. Again, it's the nearest point of relief, determined the same way as you determine any other point of relief. And again, you get one club length, just no closer to the hole. So before, the player could be standing on the putting green here. So it's really to get everything off. Caddying.
One point there, Tom. With our alley course ball too. You have to take the ball off the green, and if the nearest point of relief, not the nice, not the end up behind Randall's tree, too bad. Gotta get that ball off the green.
I'm good with that.
So is this a penalty?
Just go to the.
No.
Potentially put it in the center.
Well, no, it has to be.
Depends where the ball is.
It depends where the ball lies. Okay.
Yeah.
So if the ball itself, like if you happened to be standing on the putting green and there was a bunker right here, and the ball was in a bunker, you still have to get off.
Ball's on the green.
Yeah.
But for you to have your feet off the green, the ball would have to be in the...
No, what you would do in that situation, if there was a bunker right there, is the nearest point of complete relief in the general area. So you would probably come over here somewhere. You would get yourself back behind that bunker. Just no closer to the hole. Okay. Just go right to 56. We talked about a caddy here being behind the player. So any of your competitions, if you have some caddies. When the player is taking the stance, and that's really putting one foot out there to take that stance, and that can be anywhere on the putting green or in the fairway or on the tee, so anywhere on the course. Caddy cannot be behind the player, really to assist in alignment. So what can, in those situations, to avoid a penalty, the player can back off, caddy can move away, and player can take their stance. So, and this is also for partners. So for any of your partner games, if your partner is behind, your partner cannot help you with your alignment either. So if that happens, the important thing is back away, as a player, back away from your stance. Let that either caddy or partner move, and then go and take your stance again to avoid penalty. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a two-stroke penalty. I think that. Oh, just go to these two then. 57. So in addition to the player's edition of the book that Todd mentioned, is that the R&A has a good app for your phone or for your iPad. I mean, you can have it on the course and look at it, but otherwise, those apps are very good. This particular one is if you just go and you click on where the course is, on the particular part of the course that they're talking about, it ends up with a whole bunch of questions that really are the likely questions that you would ask, the kind of situations, and then it'll take you right to the rule. You just click on that and it takes you right to the rule, so it'll give you exactly what you're looking for. And the apps have all of the graphics that we're looking at here tonight are in the Players Edition, they're in the rule books, and in the they're on those on these apps as well.
So you can do it by course. Like you can call up one.
No.
It refers to a situation on a golf course.
Oh.
So saying you're in a penalty area, it'll show you an example of the whole penalty area and bring up a couple questions.
Yeah. So you would go to all of these, like there's one here, or you're on the putting green. So you click on those, it'll just give you a series of questions that are the likely, the most likely questions. And then there's also the USGA also has a similar type app that gives you all that kind of information. So it depends on how much you want to read at the end of the day. So again, those are just click on the local rules for a second, and that'll just that one right there, yeah. So expanded penalty areas, red penalty areas. So you may end up with some more of those on your course. So again, as we talked about there, drop zones. If you have any drop zones on the course, the only important thing to remember is you still have to drop it the same way. The drop zone itself is a relief area, so the ball has to be dropped in the relief, that drop zone, and has to stay in that drop zone. So that's really all you have to worry about with that. And you do have a couple of no play. Oh yeah.
Drop zone, and like there are certain drop zones where there's a lot of play. And you drop it and it rolls into a divot. You're stuck.
Yeah, there's no relief for divots, despite a lot of questions from a lot of people over the last number of years.
And do you have to be in the drop zone yourself?
You do not have to be in the drop zone. And the same with the relief areas, you don't have to be in the relief area. And if you do happen to be in the relief area, when the ball hits, or you're in the drop zone, and the ball hits your foot accidentally, no, not accidentally on purpose, but just accidentally, there's no penalty, and you just play the ball as it lies. So, but if you position yourself so the ball will hit you and not roll down the hill or something when you're dropping,
So what
then
you're
that's
saying is you should stand on divots.
So that it won't.
Well, you can't do anything you do purposely will cause you a penalty. Let me put it that way.
Purposely.
Purposely, yeah. So any deliberate action to influence the movement of the ball. So that's pretty well it. Some other questions?
Yeah, question about, there's been on the tutorials and stuff, they haven't really talked about this new local rule for lost ball OB. And I wonder if you could talk about it, because I think we have the option of implementing it, but it makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, it's up to the club to implement. It's a local rule,
Yeah.
so it's not part of the rules of golf, but it's a local rule, like some of your others. So if it's implemented, then two things happen. So it's really to instead of playing a provisional ball, you go out and you find if it's lost, you estimate where it is. Because it's lost, you don't know exactly where it is. So then you get yourself out to the fairway, and for a 2-stroke penalty, and then you hit from the fairway. You get 2 club lengths onto the fairway, and a 2-stroke penalty. So, and it really just equivocates playing a provisional ball and then playing, because you would be hitting 3 off the tee if it was a tee, and then you'd be hitting 4 in the fairway. So what it does is that instead of having a provisional ball end up in the same place as your original ball, it gets you out to the fairway. If it goes out of bounds, same thing. You estimate where it went out of bounds, unless you know where it went out of bounds. And you equidistant from that spot, get yourself out to the fairway, 2 club lengths onto the fairway, again, 2-stroke penalty. And then if you're around the green, again, it's all equivalent. So if it happens to be lost behind the green or something, or out of bounds, if there's out of bounds behind the green, you bring yourself, you get a relief area that's sort of all the way around till you get around to fairway. So, but equidistant. But again, for two strokes. So it depends on where you hit it. You may want to say, well, I'm just going to, I'll play stroke at distance as opposed to, doing that. So at the end of the day, it's just an equivalent of stroke and distance. And it's really to speed up play and things like that.
You're familiar with Front Hill, right?
Yep.
So on the 3rd hole, hard dog leg left.
Yeah.
Tee shot goes into the hazard on the hill on the right-hand side. It's a terrible place to be. Somewhere over there is the boundary fence, but it's always a lost ball.
Yeah.
Any drop on the fairway is closer to the hole.
Well, you can't. You'd have to come back.
You have to come back.
In that kind of situation, you can't be closer to the hole. But you come out to the fairway, to your nearest fairway, but no closer to the hole. And then your relief area is really everything behind it. So.
What if there is no fairway closer, that isn't closer to the hole, because the hole is over there?
It doesn't have to be fairway.
Well,
You have to be able to drop.
Well, that's a good point, Bob, but it says fairway.
Well,
Fairway's not.
well, no, it says closely mown. So if you had a tee, if you had it, it's really, the first cut. So it's really not the fringe, but the closely mown area. So, but if your tee, or if you have a walkway that goes from the tee out to the fairway, that could be your closest, or it could be the tee that's back there as well. Now with that dog leg, what you would do is, well, you find the nearest, the nearest area. Now because that's a dog leg, you're going to get fairway at some point, but it's got to be no closer to the hole.
But you can't drop it in the rough.
You can drop it in the rough.
You can drop it in the rough. You just may not be able to get it to the fairway in that situation.
Yeah, the relief area is not just a tiny relief area. The relief area is from where your ball lies, a couple of club lengths from that, all the way around, and everything behind those two lines coming back from the flag. So they're lines from what you do is equidistant from the flag. You get back to what we call closely mown as opposed to fairway. So whatever your nearest closely mown is, and then everything equidistant. So if you're 50 yards from the green, you've got to be at least 50 yards. And if in some situations it has to be 75 because you're in a penalty area, and you're back to the 75.
We'll talk about that as well, just to let you know, Thomas, and the rest of the room. There's a golf executive meeting in May. We'll be discussing that local rule to see if we want to adopt as a club, because we have to institute ourselves and go from there.
With regards to 17, which has an OB, and if you're close to the OB, you lose your ball, you're almost certain it's in bounds.
Almost?
Oh, 95%. Where do you play it?
Well, if it's lost or out of bounds,
You're lost, but if it's lost, you don't know if it's out of bounds, but you're pretty sure that it's not out of bounds.
well, in these situations, you have to estimate. You either know that it's out of bounds, or if it's lost. If it's lost, again, you estimate where it is, and you stay equidistant to get yourself back to out to the fairway, essentially, or closely mown. And, so that's really, now there are some, if you decide to empty it or implement it, there are some graphics that will explain just what we talked about relief area, but the equivalent is just stroke and distance, but getting you into a much better position than you might otherwise be. So, and it costs you 2 strokes. Yes?
So I downloaded that app, so they have a player's edition, and they have rules of golf.
Player's edition is what you really want. That's the same book that Todd has got for you.
So then what's
yeah, really, this is the book, so the player's edition, and this is the rules of golf. And you don't need all of this because everything as a player, written sort of in first person as well, as opposed to the player talking about you, so you understand exactly who you're talking about.
so you put on the first option.
Yeah.
Okay, more questions for Tom?
So is there still a decisions book after that as well?
Well, there is. It's called Interpretations now.
Okay, it's not called decisions, but same.
Yeah. Somewhat the same. They aren't hard, what we call, they're interpretations now, so they're not hard and fast decisions anymore. So they're up to
The rules official.
referees in any particular event.
Referees, sorry.
Appropriately.
Okay, thank you, Tom. I appreciate your time. Like I mentioned, there's rules books here for 2019. If anyone would like one, help yourselves to them when we leave. I'll just take your name down. Just from again, respecting time, I think Greg's got how many minutes or so here to run through a few things.
20
We'll
minutes.
see.
No longer than we have.
No longer than that. Right. So we'll see if this presentation.
20 minutes to an hour.
This could be short. This doesn't work. Okay, good evening, everyone. So I'm here tonight to talk to you about caring for your course. And the key word there is yours. I mean, this is your golf course. I think the expectation would be that you should be doing everything possible to ensure that the playing conditions stay as good as possible. When it comes to the greens department, we put in hundreds of hours a day to try and get the conditions as good as we can for you to play. In the morning when the first group comes out, the conditions are usually very good shape. So everything that you see during the day is usually caused by member play and some of the things that people aren't doing. So, for me, the biggest one and the most, I guess, the obvious thing that you see on the golf course is divots. We are a busy golf course. We have a lot of play. How the divots are looked after has a big impact on how the course looks, certainly towards the end of the season. I mean, it's a gradual thing over the whole year. But as you can see, it's a pretty unsightly looking fairway. Okay? And that was probably somebody practicing somewhere on the course. Here's some divots, some of the ones where they've taken a very clean divot. Kind of interested to know where they're aiming, different directions.
You can see this little one just here. It's almost just more like a skid mark. Didn't really take a divot. That's the kind of thing you would use some divot mix in just to prop it up and use your foot just to smooth it out. The other ones are the ones that we'd like to see replace the divot. These two here. And you can see one there that's been, someone has divoted that one, although again, I'm not sure where they're on the ground. And this is what we find usually in the morning. We'll find these out on the fairways. But you've got a couple of good examples here of a very good divot. Actually, these should be replaced. There's lots of soil still on the bottom of that divot there. And the chances, if it's put back in properly, it has a good chance of recovering and just growing back in again. Notice on here, though, there's a couple of brown ones here. So somebody has actually put them in properly. But unfortunately, the conditions that day probably did it dried out. And it happens because depending on the time of year, certainly in months like June where you've got hot conditions, sunny weather, but humidity levels are very low. So everything evaporates very quickly. So the divot's only this thick, it dries out very quickly and they don't make it. So that's the kind of thing that our divot crews will look after. They peel those out and replace them, put divot mix in there. But these are definitely ones that should be put back in.
I found some of those today on the middle of the course. I couldn't find the divot. Do I leave them there or do I put them over on?
Brown ones or the...
No, green.
Oh, you found a piece of turf, but couldn't find where it
Yeah,
came from.
I couldn't find where it came from because I didn't do it.
I
Just leave it there?
Yeah, I would just leave it there. We'll look for, the crew will find it, probably put it back. If you can find it, that's great. Put it back in the source. Yeah. But this is what we see in the mornings. You'll get divots laying all over. This is on 16 actually. The fairway bumpers. That's another very popular spot for divots on that one. I guess because again you're a wedge or something into the green for some of the big hitters. Here's an example of where somebody's tried to replace them, and I'll give them credit for that. But again, they put them in back to front. So you can see that brown area on the side. That really should be flipped around and it should go in. So when you stamp on it, you should almost not see that markable. It should be disappear. And you can see here they fill that one there. And again, this is probably somebody practicing, of course, which is one of my big pet peeves. Here's a divot that's a couple of divots that were filled with divot mix and seed, and this is the kind of thing that will, the seed is germinated and they fill in nicely over time. Okay, one of the worst areas for divots on this course is the valley course tee. It's and we've tried everything. It's very hard. These tee decks are so small. They just can't take that kind of abuse. You can see down here somebody's practiced a little bit in the back right corner. They've taken 4 or 5 shots from there. But you just see it just takes a beating. And it's very difficult for us to really do much. The grass just doesn't regenerate quick enough to fill in those gaps.
Could you put sandboxes up there?
We could. We used to do that. But they don't always get used. And the seed in there will germinate. We end up with boxes full of grass.
There's at least 4 or 5 holes that you don't bring your cart to.
Yeah. Well, we have a team maintenance guy. He does team maintenance every morning. And Tom's been doing it for 25 years. He takes divot mix with him, and he fills all those divots in first thing in the morning.
But
We find that much.
you can do to help though?
You can do it if you wish to,
Take our mix up there.
Exactly, you can do that. You can even replace the divots. I mean, if you've taken a divot off a tee, you can put it back. It's the same as a fairway. You can take those divots and put them back in. That's fine too. And this is what some tees will look like by the end of the year too. I mean, this is number 6, and we've just redone that tee deck this year. And what we did is we basically made one long tee, so we've expanded the size of the tee, so we're going to see how that handles the traffic better this year.
Craig?
Yep.
Do you find that using a tee on the tee box makes a difference?
It does.
I think a lot of people, in particular in the Valley Course, tend to practice their approach shots from the tee boxes without using tees. And then also not replacing the divots, so making the tee boxes mandatory to use a tee, would that or
You
trying
can try to
do
make
that?
it mandatory. It's tough to enforce.
But do you think it makes a difference, right?
Yes. It would.
year. But again, the valley course holes are so short, as in 100 yards. For those who want to practice their wedge shots and stuff like that, I think they just find it ideal. So. And then again, in the spring this year, I was lucky that a good many of the members actually came out and we did all the fairways in the spring there. And I appreciate that. It was a great effort by everybody. We managed to get through them all. And that went a long way to the condition of the golf course as it looks right now. We just need warm weather for the things to germinate, so it is coming. The other big one is ball marks. The green surface is obviously the most important surface on the course. Everybody wants, when you're on that green, you want smooth conditions. Ball marks not being repaired obviously will impact that playability. So, here's a very good one here. Again, I didn't put up any slides of how to repair them. I mean, there's a lot of YouTube videos and stuff like that, so if you want to go online and have a look, it's the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. Again, here was somebody practicing on 10 green. One morning we came out and found like 12 of these on the green, so this is the sort of thing that does happen. It's very disappointing, actually. Now, here's a ball mark that was not, again, they tried to repair it, but unfortunately they repaired it the wrong way, and they pulled all the soil up to the top and tapped it, so we end up with this big black, and you'll see them on the greens, I'm sure. You've got these big blemishes on the greens. That's from ball marks not being repaired the right way. So, ideally when you do them, they should almost disappear again. You shouldn't see them on. The other thing I wanted to talk about was just general care on the greens. I watch play quite a bit out there. People tend to do some silly things on the green. I mean, using their putter to try and pop the ball out of the hole. They do damage the holes. That sort of thing. Here, somebody's taking a wedge to the green just beside the hole. Just in general, how you walk on the green, making sure you lift your feet. All those things go a long way to keeping that smooth surface for everybody to play on. I mean, if you watch the PGA players, they walk around the green. I know they do quite a bit of walking around with some of the putts and all, but they do lift their feet, and when you watch them pick a ball out of the hole, they try to do it very gently with 2 fingers or whatever to try and get the ball out without damaging the edge of the cup. By the end of the day, the edges are just horrendous, especially on a busy day. So just some of those things too. Just be aware of when you're on the green, you could have another 100 golfers behind you. So just be aware of them as well, and it works for everybody. So. Bunkers. Again, we put a lot of effort into bunkers. It takes a lot of hands to keep these in shape. Believe it or not, we spend more time on these than we do on greens. It's kind of stupid what we do. So every morning we go around, and what we do is either give them a complete break, depending on the time of the week, or we'll do what we call touch-ups, where we go in and we'll fix whatever damage was done the day before, in a nice, neat, orderly manner. But unfortunately, there are some members who, when they go into these bunkers, they walk out and they won't even touch it, which I find very amazing. And even sometimes they go in and practice and leave that. So as Tom was saying, if you land in that, you're bad luck. But that's not really fair to your fellow golfers to be doing that to them. So ideally what you want to do is please make sure you break the bunkers. There's rakes around all the bunkers. So if you just grab a rake and just knock it, just smooth it out. And then again, our team will come in the morning and we'll make sure that everything is touched up and neat and smooth. So just as a general courtesy to each other, that's what we're doing. And again, there's another really good example. Someone taking a good shot there. So a couple other areas I wanted to talk about. This is the driving range. We don't use the tee deck, the grass tee deck, very often because again, it's not very big. You can see this is just one weekend. Just pretty much just destroyed, and then that's it for a while. But when you do use these grass tees, this is the ideal way to practice. So take strokes like this. Just keep moving the ball back and try and take it out of nice strokes. We'll divot those up. Those will heal much quicker than just a scattered shot making area. This one too really gets me. The putting green. It's not, especially in the middle of summer, I'll come up in the morning and look at the green, and you can see where somebody has been standing there for probably an hour, continually hitting balls at the pole. By the end, and we've had actually these areas die completely, so we have dead spots on the green, just purely from the abrasion and the traffic. So, you know, ideally what I'd like to see is people, again, move around a bit, but if you want to do one shots from one area, put a mat down or something like that.
Or a towel.
Or a towel, something like that, just to take the stress off the turf. Because again, that it does a lot of damage. And we see a lot of that actually once we get into the summer. Here's another one that you're probably not aware of, but if you're out on the course and you decide you can put sunscreen on and an insect repellent, do it on the cart path or somewhere like that, because those sprays actually damage the turf. And we've had, I see this 2 or 3 times through the summer. And it's usually on the first couple of holes. So 1 or 2, so you get going and it's like, oh, all of a sudden I realize I need something. And then you can see obviously the footprints where they were standing, like right there. So, and the spray is just basically filled in with sand. So just something you might not be aware of, but it's a little and this one has come up in the last few years. We find them on yes, cigars, yes, the other one that goes to. But anyway, please, if you're going to take those with you, spit them out in the rough somewhere like that. Don't throw them all over the green, which we do often see. And there's something else I didn't have up here. There's a couple of things actually. One is if you do happen to play from a bunker, when you come out of the bunker and you start walking on the green, please make sure you pack your shoes. Get the sand off the shoes. We see that quite often, footprints going across the green. And again, that's not very good to putt through the first of all. Okay, so just a small thing. And then the last one is driving habits. If you take in golf carts, if you have cart paths out there, and I'd like to see all 4 wheels on the path as you're driving around, not 2, and just watch curves and things like that. Something else to talk about.
So,
yes,
I actually think that maybe that kind of stuff would go out to the whole club.
The people here aren't usually the ones.
Because we wouldn't be doing those types
No,
of things. So I'm just saying, I think.
Okay, Eugene's going to be all over this.
Oh, is that going out to the
Yes,
whole club?
yeah,
Oh,
Eugene.
hello.
But anyway, the other thing I was going to mention with golf carts is that in rain conditions, ideally you want to stay on the fairway, drive on the fairway. The reason being is that we top dress the fairways regularly, so those surfaces are firmer and drier. When you get out into the rough, there's more chance of getting mud into those conditions and leaving up to the marks. So just something, as you get on, leaving the tee, try to get onto the fairway as quickly as possible, and then stay on the fairway until you get down to the green and get back on the cart. Anyway, so those are just some of the things, other things I wanted to mention. So, and that's it pretty much.
And Greg, if you want to do anything to the rough, like the rough was quite wet today when I played, and I took a few divots, and they tended to just blow apart.
Yeah,
Just leave it?
Yeah, you can, because the type of grass that we have in
Yeah.
the rough, we get into the growing habits of turf, but it tends to be what they call rhizomatous growth habit, which means they have rhizomes growing underground, and they will shoot and come back up again, so they will fill in. But if you can find the divot, like if you do take a divot in the rough, absolutely put it back in.
Yeah.
But please do not take a divot from fairway and accidentally put it in the rough, because we do not want bent grass growing in the rough. We want it on the tees and the fairways and the greens, but not in the rough. It's not a good grass to be growing at 2 inches. It gets too thatchy and puffy and then ends up dying in the summer. So it's not ideal. So. Very good.